Good afternoon, everyone. So, guys, listen, before I go on with this video, the fundamental, theme of my videos right now are all roads are leading to a global conflict on an industrial scale. I've been harping on about this and I've been literally repeating the same phrases now for well over a year. Literally, go back and watch some of my early videos when I talk about this diversions where the United States is going to go to the Middle East and the United Kingdom will take the lead in Ukraine against the Russians. Like, I've been saying this for such a long time, and I've been getting flack from everybody in the comment section saying, oh, the United States will never do this. Oh, this can't happen because of this. And it's all happening now in real time, and we can see this now. Everybody can see this, and people are starting to jump on this bandwagon saying, oh, you know what, the United States might focus in the Middle East and the United Kingdom might have to take a lead in Ukraine against the Russians. So Donald Trump has come out now yesterday. In fact, guys, before we get onto the video, can you hit the buttons below if you've not done so already? The like button, the subscribe, share the video on your socials, and hit the bell for the notifications button. So basically, yesterday, I think it was on the 16th, or it may have been the 15th, but the article certainly came out yesterday. Donald Trump's come out and he said, oh, the situation in Ukraine may be a little bit more difficult to solve than we... In fact, I'll tell you now exactly what he said, because I don't want you guys getting me done for fake news. So I'll share this article with you guys and we can read it together. Trump says Russia-Ukraine peace may be harder than the Middle East. President-elect Trump on Monday, so yeah, it was yesterday, expressed confidence that he would settle the war between Russia and Ukraine, but also stressed that it would be difficult and possibly harder to solve than the conflict between Israel and the Palestinian militant group. Trump, speaking at a surprise news conference in Florida, called the war in Ukraine carnage and stressed that it had to stop, but acknowledged its challenges for the first time in detailed remarks. He said the Middle East conflict between Israel and Hamas would be in a good place when he enters office for the first time, but he hesitated on Russia and Ukraine. I actually think more difficult is going to be Russia-Ukraine situation, Trump said. I see that as more difficult. Trump noted the complexities of the war, citing North Korean troops fighting alongside Russian forces in Ukraine. He also said he was opposed to Biden administration last month authorizing Ukraine's use of long-range missiles to strike deep into Russia. So, this is things that I've been saying for the longest time. And like a lot of people are like, especially people on the right or the perceived right of politics, because I'm not too sure that there is a left-right of politics anymore. But a lot of people on the perceived right of politics, are banging the Trump bandwagon and beating the Trump drum and saying, when Trump gets in office, there's going to be peace everywhere. Listen, I want to be quite clear. I don't think there's going to be peace at all. I think all we're going to see is further escalations leading us into a conflict of, a global conflict on an industrial scale. Remember House Resolution 559. That was passed on the 1st of November 2023 clearly states that Iran can't have nuclear weapons. I've talked about the drones, how I feel these drones that are operating in New Jersey, this is a psyop for a subsequent operation in southern Iran by the United States. We're seeing all the hallmarks now of this invasion of Iran. We're seeing the start of this, and we're starting to see Trump lay the seeds so he can lay off the situation in Russia, lay off the situation in Ukraine, and say, listen, guys, you know what? I gave these guys an option for peace. They don't want peace. I'm going to let them fight over it. We're not wasting any more of our money in Ukraine or, in that region, because these guys don't actually want peace. Now, the situation on the ground is a lot more complicated. The two options for peace are this. One, Vladimir Putin removes all his troops from Ukraine, from Crimea, and restores the 2013 borders. That's the one option. The second option for a ceasefire would be that the Russians take control of Ukraine up to the river Dnipro and take control of the cities of Dnipro, Kremenchuk, and Kiev, obviously. Now, neither of those seem like it's going to happen. I mean, just the amount of troops you would need to take Kiev, it's unbelievable. Kiev it's a huge city. It's a huge, beautiful city. And it just can't be done. Not with the amount of troops that the Russians have, and not with the amount of training that those troops have as well. When you start operating in a built-up area, fighting in built-up area, or conducting operations in a built-up area, operating in an urban environment, the amount of training you need to have is a lot higher, because you're not just dealing with a 2D battle space, you're dealing with a 3D battle space, potentially even a 4D battle space, depending on how what metrics you're using. So it's not going to happen, all right? He may get up to the River Dnipro at the most, and then there could be some talks of a ceasefire. Then there could be talks of boots on the ground, NATO boots on the ground as peacekeepers. But be under no illusion, these ceasefires are not going to hold. And I've been saying this for the longest time. So real quick, guys, I forgot to do it earlier. Let's go over to the war map. I'm going to go back from the 17th of, I'm going to go back now to the 17th of 17th of October. So this is only two months, and just look at the amount of ground the Russians have taken in 2 months. So this is what the front line, well, yeah, it is what the front line looked like, actually. This is what the front line looked like on the 17th of October 2024. So I'm just going to skip forwards. I'm just going to skip forward to the present day. Watch how much ground the Russians are taking, and watch how much ground the Ukrainians are taking back. 0. And, and people are saying the Ukrainian front line is about to collapse. Well, from this video, and I will put, and some of you guys have been asking about the map, I'll put a link to the map in the description. Some of you guys have been, been talking about this, and you're saying, oh, the front line in Ukraine is about to collapse. From what I'm showing you here, and from if you want to go back and look at this map yourselves, tell me, when did the front line, the front line's already collapsed? The only thing that's slowing the Russians down now is the Russians' own pace. Right. Yeah. So I'm going to go forwards, guys. Each click it represents a day. Can you see just how quickly the Russians are pushing forwards? And this is every day, and they're moving forwards in multiple locations. So that is that's yesterday. Obviously, this is the map as of the 16th. The 17th will update, obviously, tomorrow on the 18th, because it runs a day behind, obviously. So, the front line in Ukraine has already collapsed. There's too much money being spent, too much destruction, too much fighting on both sides now for either side to say, okay, we're going to enter into peace talks. The Ukrainians have just taken, well, let's share the article. The Ukrainians have just taken out the, let me share this one with you as well. So the Ukrainians have just, as I understand it, the Ukrainians have claimed, but we'll go with what the article says. Chief of Russia's nuclear protection forces killed in Moscow bomb blast. Lieutenant General Kirilo, his name was Igor Kirilo, killed outside an apartment building in the Russian capital. Now, senior Russian general in charge of nuclear protection forces in Moscow has been killed in a bomb hidden in an electric scooter. Russia's investigative committee said Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov was killed as chief of the troops of radiological, chemical, and biological defense. Was killed on Tuesday outside an apartment building in, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, guys. Now, what does this mean going forward? It means the Russians are pissed. Okay, they are. Keyword, I may get the video demonetized, but let's just go with it anyway. So this means now that the Russians are going to be angry, and they are going to seek retaliation. People are saying the Ukrainians shouldn't be doing this because it's just angering the bear. You're poking the bear. You're poking further retaliation. If you're the Ukrainians now, what more can the Russians throw at you? These guys, the Ukrainians are in this war. They're fighting. They've lost, like, as Zelensky came out and he said, I think last week or maybe the week before, so far the human toll has been 43,000. That's been the human toll. Now, if you think about the I don't know what the specifics are from this conflict, but normally in conflicts, for every one person that's not coming back, you have 7 people with life-changing injuries. So you can already see the human toll that this conflict's having. I mean, just think about that just think about that in the terms of demographics. Ukraine's young men are no more, like 43,000, and these will have been predominantly young men. They're gone, and they kind of, any civilization or culture needs young men and young women, of course, to repopulate to repopulate and to keep that culture going. So, it's absolutely insane what's happening. And people all the time think that there's going to be some sort of magic peace horse. There's going to be no such thing as a magic peace horse. It's not going to happen. So, these comments from Donald Trump, what he said recently about, the situation in Ukraine may be a little more difficult to solve. This is where the direction I think he's going now. He will come out after being in office a number of weeks, it may even be a number of days, and he will come out and he'll say, listen, you know what? I've given the Ukrainians and the Russians the path to peace. They're not taking it. So we're going to pull funding from that situation. They don't want peace. They're going to fight. We're just going to let them. And that will be what's been planned for the longest time. Remember, look back through my previous videos over a year ago when I said this was coming. I said this day was coming. I said all paths right now are leading towards a global conflict and an industrial scale. Guys, as the NATO Secretary General said, the West is not ready. And we are not ready to fight a war with the Russians, because the West, NATO, and again, I struggle to, I don't want to keep using the word NATO, because I do think that NATO is obsolete, especially if Donald Trump pulls funding from NATO or whatever this contingent is called that's going to start funding the Ukrainians. When Donald Trump stops funding this conflict and stops funding the Ukrainians, then that's going to leave Europe, and the United Kingdom will be involved in this, to fund this war and to continue with this war. And sending money into this conflict is not working. It's not working. At best, it delayed the inevitable. And the inevitable really is they need boots on the ground. They need trained boots on the ground. Trained boots on the ground who can operate, who can do fighting in built-up areas, who can conduct complicated ambushes, who can conduct who can prosecute multi-domain assaults. By that, I mean air, artillery, infantry, all working together. The Ukrainians don't have the interoperability between their units. They have, there's a lot of problems in the Ukrainian military. They're very experienced, but the training is very low. That means that they're doing one thing and they're doing whatever works, and that makes them predictable. And predictable is very easy to fight, because guess what? You know what they're going to do because they're predictable. So, guys, that is kind of the situation in Ukraine. I wanted to keep this video short because I just wanted to focus it on Ukraine. This is another one here, guys, actually. We have a war tax coming. Yes, we do. You heard it here first. We in the United Kingdom are going to have a war tax. So let's just have a look at this. So Keir Starmer, the pensioner Palmer or something, of the Farmer Harmer or something. So Keir Starmer now, he's out. Well, let's just read the article and I'll tell you what I'm reading between the lines. And like so many things, it's what's not said and it's what's hidden in the pretext. Starmer urges allies to double down on Ukraine support, as Estonia suggests a security tax. By security tax, they mean Ukraine war tax. Just hours before the start of a key European defence summit, Estonia's defence minister issued a stark warning that spending 2% of GDP on defence is simply not enough. It's not. It's really not, guys. Like at the height of the Cold War, we were like the United Kingdom was spending 10% of GDP on defense. And I mean, guys, listen, I'm a bit of an aviation nerd. I'll be the first to admit it. Like, we created some absolutely fantastic aircraft. We was at the forefront of aviation design. Of like, you know, we had the English Electric Lightning, the Vulcan bomber. I mean, just those two things alone were leaps, and they were just so far ahead of what anybody else had. It was unbelievable. And then we decided it was pointless, and we just stopped it. And now we just buy off the Americans. Anyway, so they're looking like here. How much more is that? Right. Keir Starmer has said allies must double down on support for Ukraine as pressure grows on the UK to boost defence spending. It comes just hours after Estonia's defence minister, Hanno Pevkur, sorry if I'm butchering that name, issued a stark warning to allies that spending 2% on GDP, 2% of GDP was simply not enough. He urged allies to act immediately to boost funding, suggesting one possible method would be to introduce a security tax, something Estonia will be implementing from the new year. Guys, we have got it coming. It's coming, a war tax. You know, we're simply not spending enough. It's insane. You know, we have literally got, like, you know, the enemy at the gates, and we're still flim-flammering over, you know, and then we've got Squealer Healy, he couldn't, you know, I'd like to ask John Healy how many sandbags he's filled. And a lot of these guys are in positions of power. They don't know they shouldn't really be there. So, yeah, that's kind of what's been happening around the world with Ukraine. If you live in the United Kingdom, guys, we are going to be fighting a war with the Russians. As far as the Russians are concerned, they're already in a war with the United Kingdom. You know, Russian mainstream media are talking about the Storm Shadow missiles that are British made, British produced. They're talking about how these things are being programmed. They're saying that there's British mercenaries in Ukraine, operating in Ukraine. Didactically, that's wrong. A lot of these guys are part of the International Legion, so they are Ukrainian military. You know, kind of like the French Foreign Legion. We've got the German, was it the German defense minister, or I think it was the German defense minister, or I'm slightly wrong on that, but a German official, like, months ago said that there were British special forces operating inside Ukraine. And of course, the Russians know this. The Russians have known this for a long time. They are not stupid. You know, and that's why the United Kingdom is already, you know, we're already involved in this war. From what the articles we've seen, it looks like we've got a war tax coming. You know, we've got a war tax coming. Trump saying he can't solve the problem in Ukraine, or he's laying the seeds and he's laying the foundations to say that he can't solve the problem in Ukraine. And I think the news of the day that's taken everybody by surprise is this this guy, the chief of the nuclear protection in Russia. He's been hit by a scooter bomb. We've had exploding pagers. We're now having exploding scooters. You know, now the main thing for this will be not the kind of, yes, the fact that it's happened, but the logistics that go behind that. You know, I saw footage of this. You know, the footage of it was in a perfect location to film this. So I would say wherever that footage is from, those people know who did this. I would say this has been passed down the train to Ukrainian military, potentially. And right now, guys, Ukrainian military, Western intelligence, it's all synonymous. It really is. You know, these guys will be working hand in hand. So the main thing about that, attack is the fact that they managed to pull that off, and they've got that level of the West, or the Ukrainians. Sorry, let's not take credit away from the Ukrainians. That the Ukrainians have that level of orchestration inside Russia. You know, if this had just been a lone person with a single, the shooty things, that stuff comes out of the end. If that had just been one of those guys, you could have kind of thought, right, okay, the network is relatively low, and this was just, this was just an unlucky incident. But the fact that they've managed to get so many things through, and they've managed to plan and execute this operation, even getting video footage of it, kind of says that the Russians are not as safe as they think in their home country, especially the capital city of Moscow. But yeah, guys, literally, you know, go back through my previous videos when I've said all roads right now are leading to a global conflict of an industrial scale. There's no way that Donald Trump can, come out with some sort of peace deal for this situation in Ukraine. At best, and this is what I've always said he will do, at best he can pull funding, and he was always going to pull funding, because the United States will be fighting a war in the Middle East, and the United States can't afford to break their spear in Ukraine. They can't afford to get bogged down in Ukraine. They can't afford to have the Russians as an enemy, the Iranians as an enemy, the Chinese as an enemy, so they're going to have some sort of tacit agreement, maybe some tacit agreement with the Russians. Listen, we're not going to attack you. You don't attack us. We've got our wars over there. You guys deal with that over there. And that's probably how it's going to go. Remember, the United Kingdom will take the lead in this conflict in Ukraine. So if you live in the United Kingdom, guess what? We're going to be, this is going to be affecting each and every one of us. And like we've just seen from that, article, guys, I feel a war tax is coming. I might put that as a thumbnail, actually. Anyway, guys, I'm going to back to grid. I'll get you guys another video later.